Okay, good morning, everyone. Hello, and welcome to our webinar, The Ultimate Guide to Embedded Analytics. I'm Ernesto Ungaro, a data analyst at Looker at our office in Dublin, Ireland. We have an awesome webinar lineup for you today. You'll hear from 3 partners and customers, giving you great insight into embedded analytics. Our presenters today, first you'll hear from our customer, Travelport. Mr. Stephen Obman is Director of Data Analytics there and has great insights into the travel industry for us, as well as an understanding of why they chose Looker for embedded analytics. Next is Susanna Pescador from Sonalake, who works with Looker and Travelport. She will give us some great Looker best practices and also some of her favorite features in Looker that she uses. And finally, you'll hear from our cloud data warehouse partner, Snowflake, and their technical expert, Jerry Tricker, about delivering analytics at scale with Snowflake. So after our speakers, I will come back and give you a review and also an upcoming preview of things we've built recently in Looker related to embedded analytics. A little housekeeping. We're going to do a brief question and answer section at the end. But feel free to ask those questions at any time. And we are recording this, and we'll send you the link, so you'll be able to get the slides and the recording of that after the webinar. Okay, so what exactly do we mean when we talk about embedded analytics? Let's start by talking about internal analytics. So a great example of that is our customer Deliveroo. Deliveroo delivers food in 12 countries, 200 cities from more than 30,000 restaurants. And their key to their success has been through the clever use of data. That starts internally, whether it's operational metrics, whether it's deciding which area to open up with next, it starts with internal analytics. Beyond that, you have your partners and your vendors. So a great example of that would be Coursera, another Looker customer. They use embedded analytics to extend insights to their partners, which are universities. And then if we build that out again, the last ring is your customers, the ultimate embedded analytics use case. So how do we extend insights to them and even monetize those insights? So you'll hear from Stephen shortly about how he did that. So the need for embedded analytics is clear, but how do we go about doing it? To stay competitive, technology leaders are focusing their energy on the competitive differentiators and core competencies. We end up buying technology that supports our core offerings rather than inefficiently investing precious internal engineering resources recreating the wheel. And in our case at Looker, prospective customers aren't even debating whether to build or buy embedded analytics technologies. For modern organizations, it's more of a decision of which solution to buy and what they can build with it on top of an extensible platform and be able to compete with it in the market. So since officially launching Powered by Looker in 2006, we've seen a huge adoption. Engineering teams love the time that they save by using it. Product managers love how it has transformed their products. And executives are delighted with the additional revenue streams that embedded analytics can open up for them. We're seeing some external validation too. This year we've been featured in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We're winning awards for being the fastest time to implementation with Powered by Looker by the likes of G2 Crowd. So with that, I will hand you over to Mr. Stephen Obman from Travelport Digital. Stephen, take us away.
Thank you, Ernesto. Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Obman, and as Ernesto said, I'm the Director of Data Analytics at Travelport Digital. So in this presentation, I'm going to outline how Travelport Digital is providing embedded analytics directly to our customers in the airline and travel agency businesses. I'll also talk about why we adopted this particular embedded analytics approach, what our customers are looking for in their analytics, and I'll highlight some of the reasons we chose Looker as the business intelligence technology to achieve that. Okay, so first I want to introduce you to Travelport itself. So as many of you may not be familiar with the company, Travelport is essentially a travel commerce platform which provides distribution, technology, payments, and other technology solutions for the $7 trillion global travel and tourism industry. So we operate in over 180 countries worldwide and have over 4,000 employees. So essentially what we do is enable the world to search, buy, sell, and share travel content. And by travel content, what I mean is seats on flights, hotel rooms, car hire, and a large range of travel ancillary products. And so Travelport consists of several major offerings. Obviously the core travel commerce platform, which provides that business-to-business marketplace that I mentioned. And that connects the world's leading travel providers, which are airlines, hotels, and car rental companies, to the buyers of that travel. And those buyers include travel managers in corporations, corporate and leisure travel agencies, and consumers themselves using online travel websites. In addition, Travelport provides the business-to-business payment solutions so that the travel industry and intermediaries can effectively and securely settle their travel transactions. And finally, in the travel technology services section, we provide IT services to airlines, including the shopping, ticketing, departure control systems, mobile traveler applications, and other solutions. In the focus of today's presentation, I'll be focusing on the Travelport Digital division, and I'll come back to that in a second. But just to give you some idea of the scale of the business, so Travelport provides air distribution services over 400 airlines globally, and that includes low-cost carriers through the commerce platform I mentioned. And the numbers here show you the scale of that travel commerce platform. And put it into context, that number of airfare searches, at 5 billion a month, is equivalent to the scale of Microsoft's Bing search engine in the US. But one of the major challenges that we have is that travel search is the content is volatile. So for example, every time an airfare search is returned in a result, it has to be based on the availability of seats on an airplane, because no airplane obviously has an infinite number of seats. And the same is true for hotel search and for a lesser extent in car hire. And as you can see here, there's over 500 million updates to fares every hour based on the revenue management policies implemented by the airlines. So it's quite a dynamic and volatile environment. Beyond air travel, of course, we provide the same services to the hotel, 650,000 hotels worldwide, of which over 500,000 of those are independent hotel properties. Some other numbers are over 37,000 car rental locations, 50 cruise and tour operators as well distributing their content. And then on the other side, we deliver all of that content to over 68,000 travel agents worldwide, and many corporations that book their own travel directly. So there's a lot of content there, and it's quite a volatile, as I said, business. But I want to talk about Travelport Digital in particular. So this division of Travelport is focused on building end traveler technology, and that's technology that the travelers use themselves, such as the mobile applications and websites. So Travelport Digital provides this technology to our customers, who then promote it to their end travelers. Our customers are increasingly focused not just on providing travel transaction capability, but on delivering a more compelling and engaging traveler experience. And as you can see, our products focus on the 4 areas to help deliver that. In the first case, we help our customers acquire mobile travelers by including key features and services in the technology that address the needs of a traveler. And you can guess the examples of that, such as the booking and check-in for airlines, boarding pass generation, and so on. The service providers can also engage directly with their customers using outbound push notification technology. And this is used to deliver timely and relevant information, such as the reminders for check-in and notification for delays and so on, all the kinds of things that travelers need. And all of that activity within the mobile and website applications is tracked and analyzed by Travelport Digital. And this is where our embedded analytics comes in, because we provide our customers with dashboards so that they can continue to monitor the performance of their applications and their outbound messaging campaigns. And lastly, the travel providers themselves are increasingly exploiting mobile as a retail channel. And by including products and services to the customer at the right time in the traveler's journey, they can enhance their capabilities and monetize around that. So some of the customers that use this technology you might be familiar with. So for example, EasyJet is a large low-cost airline in the United Kingdom. Etihad Airways is a full-service airline that operates out of the United Arab Emirates. And Singapore Airlines will be three of the large airline customers that use this technology. And on the travel agency side, BCD Travel, many of you may be familiar with, is one of the world's largest corporate travel management companies. Okay, so what are our customers looking for? Well, this technology is really important, and it's being driven by two demands. The first one is from the travelers themselves. There's a big demand for online real-time information and services at all the different points within a customer journey. And it's not just when they're planning a trip, but as you can see, there's lots and lots of different stages through the journey as shown there. And it's much about, as I said, the experience of the travel as well as just what you do when you get to the destination. And the service providers are using this technology to create those touch points to deliver the services that are required when they're required, to improve the experience or to respond to requests or travel alerts and so on. There's also major cost savings to service providers by moving travelers to a mobile self-service from in-person services. So for example, a mobile boarding pass can save an airline up to 90% of the cost of an in-person check-in at the airport. So if you look at all the various stages of the trip, and the example here is just a one-way flight here, there's huge opportunity for the providers to smooth that journey for the traveler. Of course, all this needs to be measured from a business context. And the service provider will need to see if for example, the communications are being read and acted on, if the services are being used by the travelers. And this is where the analytics comes in, and we can provide that feedback in a simple, intuitive form using an embedded Looker dashboard. Okay, so why did we choose embedded analytics? So as you can see from the screenshot there in front of you, that's an example from of our embedded dashboard. So the main feature is that the primary reason is that the customers already have a login to a portal, and they use that for configuring parts of the products that they purchased from Travelport. So we didn't want to give them a second login to a completely different analytics system, which would be confusing for them and would put an additional overhead on us during customer onboarding and ongoing maintenance and user management and so on. The second point is in some ways related to the first one, which is that because the customers are already using a Travelport branded portal, we wanted a consistent user experience. So one of the things we've done is change the color palette for the charts and the diagrams so that we're using the Travelport color scheme. So this allows the embedded analytics to be seen as a consistent user experience. Clearly, a lot of the data that we show is commercially sensitive. So data governance and protection is very high on our priority list. We clearly don't want to expose one customer's data to other customers. And so that's a really important point. Now, we don't actually expose individual traveler data through this analytics platform. It's all aggregated data, but it is still commercially sensitive. We also wanted total control over what the customer experience actually is. So the travel industry is dominated by quite a few large providers, but by far and away the largest volume of providers are pretty small. They would not have in-house data analysts usually. So what we want to be able to do is guide them through their experience of analytics and how to answer their business questions. So lastly, one of the criteria is about the ease and management of those reports and dashboards. So we expect the customers that as soon as they start using analytics to start demanding more information over time about their business. And what we needed to be able to do is to deliver that to them along with some indication of the relative performance of their applications and possible actions to modify that. Okay, so why is this a value to our customers? So in order to explain the value of the embedded analytics to our customers, we normally frame it in terms of the business questions that they actually have. So for simplicity, we normally put those questions into one of the 4 categories that you can see there. And each of the dashboards provides information to answer those business questions. So for example, if you take something like a why are people abandoning check-in question, which is in the understanding behavior section. I mentioned earlier that the cost savings the airlines have in encouraging people to do mobile check-in. So naturally, they want to see not just how many people are using that feature, but also highlighting if people aren't completing the process. So essentially what we've done is model the check-in as a funnel with travelers going through the steps of identifying the passengers, selecting the seats, purchasing upgrades, and so on. And by doing this, we're not only seeing the percentage of completions, but also if there's significant dropouts along the funnel. And then the airline can take some action to discover why that is happening and improve their process. So one of the nice features of Looker is that we can actually embed a text tile onto the dashboard containing the business question that the dashboard is answering. And that helps with framing all of the different data and the looks, so the customer gets a clear understanding of what the data presented is trying to say. And we also like to state those business questions in such a way that there's some sort of action they can take if required. For example, it's not just enough to know the numbers of the push notification messages that the travel agency has sent to travelers. Instead, the most important thing is how many of those messages actually resulted in the traveler carrying out the call to action. So if the performance is poor, then they can take some action to improve the way the message has been sent or change the wording and so on. Okay, so why did we choose Looker? Well, I went through some of the criteria earlier on for why we wanted to use embedded analytics, and of course Looker met all of those criteria. But there's a few other things I think that swung it in terms of Looker's capability. Travelport Digital runs on an agile basis, and we are moving in the direction of a continuous deployment environment. So the ease of use of deploying new dashboards and new reports obviously fits into that. We didn't want to have a very long development cycle when it comes to deploying new dashboards. So the second thing is the report for real-time reporting. So as I mentioned earlier on, one of the products we have allows the travel agents and airlines to use push notifications. So there's a requirement there to be able to see how those campaigns are performing while they're in flight. So this means that as soon as the notifications are sent, you get to see if the travelers in the world are actually actioning all of those particular push notifications. We also wanted the more sophisticated customers to be able to build their own reports and dashboards. And Looker provides that obviously through the Explore function without us having to deploy a separate desktop tool to the customer. It also opens up the possibility for certain of our commercial people to offer that as a value added or independently to charge for that particular service. So the basic analytics package that's delivered as part of the product suite is the dashboards you see there, but then we can also charge for allowing them to create their own dashboards. The simplicity of the user role is very important within embedded analytics, because we obviously manage all of our customers through our own user management. And that the embedded analytics makes it easy to do that as well. So we don't have to have two sets of user management going on. We also wanted the capability to develop different sets of reports for different types of customers, and the user role stuff does that quite well. Last two things here, on the performance side, we found that the reports need to be generated quite quick. As I said before, up above here, the real-time reporting. Real-time reporting means real-time. It doesn't mean waiting 15 minutes for a report to run, and that's a really important feature for us. And lastly, on the security and auditing side, we also like the capability of monitoring who's actually using the dashboard. So in a sense, using analytics to find out who's using the analytics. Okay, so I hope that helps set the business context and some of the use cases for embedded analytics within Travelport Digital. Thank you for your time and attention. And now I'm going to hand you over to Susanna, who's going to talk about the technology part.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everybody. My name is Susanna Pescador, and I'm a software engineer here at Sonalake. We are a software partnership company, and we work mainly with travel, telecoms, insurance, and life science domains. We have clients such as AOL, Travelport, and Vodafone. We have two offices, one here in Dublin, Ireland, and another one in Poland, Poznan, and we have over 100 people split between the two offices. And I suppose one of the areas we specialize in is data analytics, and that's why we're here today. I'll be walking you through the data analytics project we developed with Travelport, and I'll be focusing on our Looker development. So the goal of the project was to develop a platform that was able to receive, store, and process data to allow Travelport and their customers to understand better their products, make better decisions about their products, and also increase engagement with their users. So from your left to your right-hand side, there's the platform we created. You have a REST API responsible for collecting the data, which are then placed into Kafka queues. So the data that gets into Kafka is either processed by a Spark streaming job, which is processing real-time data, or it is streamed down to a data lake in S3. So the data that gets to the data lake is then processed by Spark batch jobs, and all the data that Spark processes, real-time or not, are placed into this aggregated database. That's a star schema database. And it's essentially where Looker gets its data from. And then on the Looker development, apart from the basic user configuration, the first step was to create our LookML model. So the LookML is the metadata layer, and it's actually what sits between your database and your reports. The first version of our LookML project was the one generated by Looker. So Looker provides you the ability that it scans through your database table, and it generates the basic files you need to start reporting. And then from this basic project, we went on to enhance it with some of the nice LookML features we have available. And one of them is the extends. So what the extends does, it allows you to abstract common functionality and reuse it throughout the code. And that's an essential functionality in a scenario like this one, because we need to be able to respond to changes in a quick, easy, and safe way. So the fact that we're reusing code provides us flexibility as it eliminates redundancy and duplication in our model, which also touched the point of maintainability. So just to give you an example, if you look at the diagram, the top box there, the time zone-based counters, so that's the mechanism we define to allow our users to select which time zone they want their reports in. So the first version of that was based on user attributes, which was great. It solved our problem. But then a few months later, Looker released the parameters functionality, which is perfect for this use case. So once we upgraded our instance, all the work we need to do is update this one file, even though we have 10 to 15 different explorers using it. So again, it makes it easier to maintain and evolve our model. And the last point on this functionality is about consistency. As Stephen mentioned earlier, Travelport wants to be able to have a standard and consistent way of reporting. And the fact that we're eliminating duplication and redundancy means that we're consistent in the way that we're reporting our data. So once we got that first basic LookML project and enhanced it with the likes of the extend functionality, the next step then is to start creating your dashboards. And on that subject, I couldn't help but talk about the custom visualizations. So Looker allows you to add new visualization types, and we've experimented this through the perspective of a user, so a non-technical user that just wants to be able to report on different visualization types. So under that perspective, we have Looker provides an online repository with some options, and then all you need to do is fill out this form. You point to a JavaScript file, put an ID, a label, and pretty much good to go. We have some examples here. So, for example, the liquid gauge there is a custom visualization, and on your left bottom side, there's a Sankey diagram, which is also a custom visualization. But then if you're a developer and you want to create your own custom visualizations, we also find Looker provides a very good development environment. So we have a sandboxed environment, which makes adding dependencies safe. We have a lot of configuration options in the very simple life cycle. So it's a no-brainer for any experienced front-end developer to start creating their own visualizations. And then once we have our dashboards ready, the next step then is to embed them. On that side, again, we felt Looker was very developer-friendly. Single sign-on was very easy to set up. From then, it's just a matter of inserting the iframe into your portal. And also the fact that all the LookML projects, including the dashboards, are under version control in Git. So it makes it easy for us to port our changes across our development and production environments. And also to add to that there's REST APIs, and this API is very extensive, so it mimics pretty much everything you can do in the web interface. And there's also SDKs to make the usage of these APIs even easier. So there's a Ruby SDK out of the box, and there's also an open API specification file that allows you to generate your own SDKs. For example, we are not Ruby developers here at Sonalake, so we went with Python. And then once we get the dashboards embedded, that's kind of like the end of our basic workflow. And from then on, it's about maintenance, evolving those models, and creating new ones. And on that side, which is the last point I would like to make as well, it's about collaboration. So essentially on this project, we have 3 different teams across 2 companies looking after different aspects of the reports. So for example, we have Sonalake looking after infrastructure and configuration. Then we have data analysts at Travelport looking after creating dashboards, and then another team at Travelport that actually does the embedding. So it's a lot of different aspects, different people looking after these things. And if you look at other established tools out there, they're built in an architecture that it makes it a bit painful to integrate all these different types of work. So for example, you might be able to install an application just for metadata definition, and then another application for report design, and then upload those reports to a server. So it makes this pipeline a little bit painful. And with Looker, we didn't felt that. In fact, Looker facilitates all this work because it is essentially one web application that combines everything into that. For example, we have this pseudo functionality, which is what you're seeing in the screenshot there. So that's a very good functionality in Looker. So it allows an admin to impersonate another user and see Looker through that user's eyes. So that's great for troubleshooting, for testing configuration, for testing even the LookML development. And it only goes to show how Looker is kind of built and thought for those modern collaborative real-time developments. So that's all I have for today. I hope you got a sense of our workflow and how Looker makes things easier. Thanks so much for your time, and I will pass this to Jerry now. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. So, hello, my name is Jerry Tricker. I'm a sales engineer with Snowflake, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the back-end part of the embedded analytics. So, talking about the database that you might need to support those analytics. And essentially, if we take a look at what Snowflake is, it's a database, but the key thing about it is it's a database that was built from the ground up for the cloud. So it's built to take advantage of all the scale, the elasticity, and all the features that you look for in a cloud platform. But it is a full SQL data warehouse. It's fully relational. It's ANSI SQL. It's ACID compliant. It offers connectivity that allows Looker to work extremely well with Snowflake, and it's delivered as a service. So it's a fully managed platform. You don't have to do any of the infrastructure work, any of the tuning or anything in order to run Snowflake as a database. So why is all this important? If you look at the objectives you have for embedded analytics, they're pretty straightforward. You want a system that enables your team to focus on the analytics, that can house all your data in one place, that can scale when you need it, and to serve everyone in your organization whenever they need to. But while those objectives might be straightforward, actually achieving them with current database technologies really isn't. You know, most of those technologies need a lot of housekeeping. They need a lot of attention in terms of tuning and tweaking to make sure you get the best performance. They're typically optimized for either relational or non-relational data, so you'll often end up with multiple systems, which gives you silos and data marts that you need to manage. You might be able to tune them for performance for dashboards, but if you start doing things like ad hoc queries, it can be very difficult to support that with the fixed resources that you have. And you know, concurrency and contention on the system can mean queues, long query times, and obviously that means frustrated users. If you try to tackle that with the kind of traditional architectures that people have been using for data warehousing, it just really doesn't work. In the cloud environment, you just don't get the full benefit of all the features that you want to use. So with Snowflake, we took a completely new look at this and came up with an architecture designed explicitly for the cloud. And it's what we refer to as a multi-cluster shared data architecture. And it's built around a centralized scale-out storage layer with multiple independent compute clusters, giving you almost unlimited scalability in both storage and compute. So how that looks is a new architecture allows us to build from the center, from our cloud storage layer. This layer sits on top of the blob storage layer on top of vendors like Amazon or Microsoft Azure. But it uses Snowflake's own file structure on top of that, which allows us to easily ingest and store both structured and semi-structured data. Okay, because it's built on top of S3 or Azure Blob Store, it's effectively infinitely scalable. It gives us the reliability and the resilience that you get from those layers. But around that, we then allow you to use different compute clusters. These are what we refer to as virtual warehouses. And you can have multiple different warehouses available for different use cases. So you might have one for running your data science jobs. You might have one for doing standard SQL queries. And the size of those can be different. So they can be different powers for different types of users. You could add one in for doing your data transformation. So you can do your ETL and your data load at the same time that you're querying your data. And one other powerful feature we have is the ability for the warehouses to automatically scale out so that if your numbers of users fluctuates over time, they still get perfect performance as those numbers of users increase. So you don't see sudden decrease in performance when lots of people all run their reports on a Monday morning. Another key facet of this is that you only pay for this compute power when you're using it. So if you're not using some of the power, you turn it off and you don't pay for it. So it's very cost effective as well. You get billed by the second for the amount of compute power that you're using. And all of this capability is wrapped up in an easy to use service. So really requires next to no management. So that service looks after things like the metadata, transaction control, it handles all the security, and it looks after availability. So if you take those requirements that we identified before in terms of easy management, having all your data in one place, the elasticity and the concurrency, Snowflake can deliver on those to really make delivering embedded analytics much more straightforward and much more cost effective. So in terms of easy management, you really don't have to do any of the physical side of the data management at all. There's no infrastructure to manage, there's no tuning and no optimization. You don't need to worry about things like partitioning data, vacuuming, any of those type of tasks that you traditionally had to do to keep a database running effectively. So you can spend your time focused on the higher value tasks, things like adding new data sets, refining existing ones, enabling new teams to have access to your data. If you look at the ability to have all your data in one system, this can be incredibly powerful. Snowflake can natively ingest semi-structured data like JSON, Avro, Parquet, XML, and sit that alongside the structured data. So if you have maybe web logs or information coming from IoT devices that's needed by the operations team or the marketing team, they can see that data alongside the structured data that's being used by the finance team. And you can either keep those separately partitioned or you can combine them together so people can join the semi-structured and the structured data together and query it as one single view. If you look at the requirements for elasticity in a system, if you take a data analytics system, the usage is going to vary over time. It can vary in a couple of dimensions. It might be the volume of data that you're using, and it can also be the demand for processing. So, in many data warehouse environments, there's a big fluctuation at key times. It might be Monday morning when suddenly everybody wants to run their reports at the same time. So the way you traditionally deal with that in a data warehouse has been to size for things like the peak load. So how do you handle that? You build a big system, it's got lots of space on it, it's got lots of processing capacity, consequently it costs a lot of money, and a lot of the time it's really not doing anything. And if you need to make changes, you need to make a significant step change to increase the amount of data or increase the processing power. Snowflake's flexibility really allows you to take advantage of the elasticity in the cloud to make sure that you can match your usage to your requirements. So you pay only for what you're using, so you don't have any over-provisioning, you don't overbuy, and you can scale compute up and down. It can be transparent and automatic, so there's always the capability there to deal with the usage when you need it. You don't need to do lots of capacity planning, and you can make those decisions on the fly to really get the optimal return from your investment. And the unlimited concurrency, by having multiple different compute nodes available and assigning them to different types of task, you don't get contention between different groups, you don't get concurrency problems, people don't wait for their answers, and so they get rapid response and excellent performance when they're running their analytics. So, in summary, if we look at those requirements, when you're looking for delivering embedded analytics, those key requirements are all delivered by Snowflake in the way that we can provide you with a system with lower maintenance costs and turnover, really get a holistic view of all your business data, provide you with business insights faster and better, and provide an environment where your analytics team will be seen as a strategic asset to the business and not as a cost center. So you can deliver all of that in one package underpinning your embedded analytics. So hopefully that's given you an idea of what Snowflake's about and where it can help you with your embedded analytics. And I'm going to hand over now to Ernesto to wrap up the end of the webinar.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jerry. Great presentation about Snowflake. I love working with you guys. So yeah, we're going to wrap up by taking a look at what we've been up to in terms of features related to embedded analytics and Looker in the past year or so, and then some things that we're either releasing now or in the process of releasing very shortly. So this is, of course, on top of our already awesome hybrid SaaS platform, complete with APIs, our unique modeling layer, HTML5 responsive front end, and beautiful visuals. But these are just some things I highlighted as things we've added specifically for embedded analytics. So the first one is JavaScript events. So the ability to pass values and events from your page down to Looker in a responsive way. So if you look at the little screenshot I'm sharing now, we have different filters you can select that you've rendered in your application, whichever way you do that. So maybe your application has a standard way to like ask questions for users. We're not asking you to take away from that experience and put in a separate filter pane. Now you can just use your own. Another important change came in 4.8. It's rethinking our content workflows so they can match the workflows of your applications. So particularly saving and scheduling, we allow you to do that and to manage that entire workflow of where it gets saved, who has the ability to schedule those kind of things. Okay, parameters in version 5. Susanna actually mentioned this as a highlighted feature that she likes. So this is ability really to change dimensions and measures programmatically and create new kinds of experiences. So it gives you, when you want it, it gives you a finer kind of control into the SQL that's generated. And you can create kind of just different types of experiences with it. In version 5 also came Git branching. So this is continuing our promise to work the same way your developers work via Git workflows and including branching. So having a separate branch that you want to use for QA or any reason to have a separate branch, the same way that you do in regular Git workflows. In 5.1.6, this is still under development, but we're giving you the ability to take a model and publish it with different localization files. So if your application is in English and French, the ability to have an option for the user to choose between languages and for the model to update in that, allowing you to do that. So there's a little screenshot of Looker in Irish there for you. Okay, this is coming very soon. Customizable themes for embedded dashboards, so the ability to create and apply themes to embeddable pages that allow you to change UI attributes such as font family, dashboard background color, and a few other things, allowing you to kind of match your brand or even per tenant change what the branding will look like for those embedded dashboards. And finally, this is actually something you can do today, but just in a not as concise manner. We added these access grants, so allowing LookML developers to restrict access to any field, view, join, or explore by tying them to required user attribute values. This really plays well into that monetization. You can have an edition of your product that includes a set of fields and another edition that does not include that set of fields, and you can control who can see that by a simple user attribute. Okay, so we're now going to take a few questions from you guys. I see a few have come in. So first one I see here is, how does single sign-on work with Looker? So I can take that one myself. Single sign-on embedding works by creating a special Looker URL. You can think of it as a token that you'll use to create an iframe. That URL contains which information you want to share, the ID of the user in your system, which permissions you want them to have, and then you sign the URL with a secret key provided by the Looker server. So it then creates effectively a token that you're using to log that user in with. If you want some examples of that, there's a great Git repository called SSO embed examples on github.com/looker. Gives you 5 or 6 different languages like Python that you can see some examples of how to do. Okay. One question here about continuous deployment with Looker. I'll take that one, and then maybe if there's any for Susanna, Stephen, or Jerry. So how can you provide a continuous deployment with Looker? So there's a lot of features in Looker to help developers, including Git integration with Git branching out in version 5. There's the content validator. There's a full REST API. So there's a lot of pieces to help you, build analytics the same way that you build your software. There's still a couple of pieces missing to really say that we do complete end-to-end continuous development with Looker. There's some exciting stuff coming this way in the product roadmap, and there's even some utilities built around these workflows. So if you haven't heard of Gazer, it's something that one of our professional services guys in New York released. It's spelled Gazer. It's a command line utility allowing you to kind of move content between instances, and yeah, lots of possibilities kind of opened up by that utility around continuous development as well. Okay, there's a question here for Stephen. What backend database does Travelport use for Looker?
So the way we've deployed the solution that Susanna outlined is in the cloud using Amazon AWS instances. So the data warehousing part that Looker dips into is simply the RDD service from Amazon. So it's just a straightforward relational database.
Okay, great stuff. There's a question, can we restrict the users at field level? Maybe you asked that right before I showed the upcoming feature to allow you to do that directly from LookML. So you'll be getting that feature very soon. I expect that to land in either the next release or the one after that. So within 2 months, you'll have that ability to do that. There is a way to do that today, just not as concise. Okay, there's a question about multi-tenancy here. I'm going to let Susanna take. So what is the best way to model multi-tenant data in BigQuery for Looker?
So we have a multi-tenant scenario in Travelport, and what we did there is, first of all, you need to switch Looker to a closed system configuration. So that kind of separates the user groups. And then from there, you can use user attributes and access filters. So it's all built into your LookML. And then you have LookML automatically inserting where clauses into your SQL query. So it's very easy to set up, actually. And it's all tied to this user attribute configuration and the access filter. That's how we done in the Travelport project.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Susanna. There's one about Snowflake, so I'm going to let Jerry take it. Does Looker access the Snowflake compute nodes, i.e. the virtual marks with business logic, or the underlying raw data lake to build the model?
Okay, so one thing that people sometimes slightly misunderstand in the Snowflake model is that the data only lives in one place. So the data lives on the data storage layer. It doesn't actually live in the compute nodes. It's just there in a transient form when you query it. But to actually query the data that sits on that storage layer, you need to connect to a compute node. So when Looker connects to Snowflake, Looker itself is connected to a compute node, and you can determine which of the compute nodes you connect to. And then that reads the data from the underlying storage layer when you execute your queries. So it gets read from the storage layer, passed through the compute node where it gets cached, and then interpreted by Looker.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks, Jerry. Okay, so I'm going to take the last question here. How does Looker compare with some other BI vendors in terms of cloud database integration? I can safely say that we're leaders in working with different cloud databases. So Stephen, Travelport using Amazon's RDS. We also work with a lot of technologies from Google. We're seeing a huge adoption in Snowflake, as well as just the traditional sort of databases like Oracle. Particularly in the lens of embedded analytics, you kind of want to consider different things than you maybe normally would for analytics projects. First of all, as Stephen pointed out rightfully earlier, I think embedded analytics consumers have less patience for waiting than maybe a traditional data analyst that knows that to crunch a couple of billion rows might take 2 or 3 seconds. That consumer that maybe isn't as close to the technology wants it to take like less than the time that Google takes to query the internet, which is fair. So, performance is very important. And then the next thing is typically internal analytics applications have like 2 or 3 users kind of running reports concurrently, but large live applications like Travelport might have, hundreds, if not thousands of concurrent people running analytics on your database. So, one of the things that makes Snowflake very special is their kind of ability to take concurrency very well. So, yeah, those are kind of things to think about. Embedded analytics is not the same as internal analytics when it comes to choosing a database because of those maybe special requirements. So, yeah, really appreciate all these questions. There's a few more there, but I don't want to run over time. So, yeah, with that, just want to thank, first of all, the audience. You guys taking some time this morning to come and even participate in the webinar. We really hope you found that useful. I also want to thank Stephen from Travelport and everybody involved there. Fantastic customer with a great use case. So really appreciate you guys coming and sharing your experience. Sonalake, great partnership with you guys, and great to see that you're providing some great services for Travelport and other customers. Snowflake, Jerry, thanks so much for your expertise today. And if you're already a customer and want to learn more, please get in touch with your customer success manager. We can help you kind of plan an embedded analytics deployment from zero. And if you're not a customer and you're not yet engaged, probably the easiest way is to request a demo from looker.com, and we'll give you access to some great resources during that demo and kind of help you decide what are the next best steps. So with that, I just want to thank everybody one last time and have a great day.